On Friday, November 15th, Netflix and Most Valuable Promotions bring you the highly anticipated heavyweight boxing mega event of the year. Jake El Gallo Paul will go toe-to-toe in the ring against Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Don't miss this epic showdown from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Watch Paul versus Tyson, now streaming only on Netflix.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/audio. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/audio. 1-800-Flowers.com knows that a gift is never just a gift. A gift is an expression of everything you feel and helps build more meaningful relationships. 1-800-Flowers takes the pressure off by helping you navigate life's important moments by making it simple to find the perfect gift. From flowers and cookies to cake and chocolate, 1-800-Flowers helps guide you in finding the right gift to say how you feel. To learn more, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/audio. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/audio.
What's up, friends? This is Ralph Amsden. You are listening to the Fortcast. It's been a little bit of a break, couple of weeks off. Had a couple of things going on that I needed to tend to, but we are back, and we are back thanks to our friends at charliehustle.com. I don't know if you saw this on social media. They got a pretty awesome bomber jacket that just dropped on charliehustle.com. It's got Sparky on the sleeve, devils across the front. This is a must for Christmas. So support the company that supports the podcasts of the 1012 network. That is the Charlie Hustle Clothing Company, a vintage-inspired clothing company based out of Kansas City that specializes in collegiate and hometown apparel. Charlie Hustle loves the Big 12 Conference and wants every Big 12 fan to be the best dressed this season with their wide selection of officially licensed collegiate apparel. That includes Arizona State. That includes us. We're part of that. We're part of the Big 12. Speaking of Kansas City, we might have a shot at Kansas City. Might have a shot at the conference championship in football. Heck, maybe even in basketball too. So head over to charliehustle.com and use the promo code 101215 for 15% off all non-sale items. That's 10, T-E-N, the number 12, the number 15, for 15% off all non-sale items. Man, if you sign up, you can get the 15% off for the first order. You can save the 10, 12, 15 for your next order. Save twice. Very smart. I went to Arizona State. I understand these things. With more than 30 schools to choose from, including all 16 Big 12 schools, they've got you covered with all of your collegiate apparel needs. Shop today at charliehustle.com. Use the promo code 101215 for 15% off all non-sale items. Again, that is charliehustle.com, promo code 101215 for 15% off all non-sale items. Now let's get to the Fortcast. It's been a minute. I missed everybody. I know that I spend time with you on Wednesday nights. I know that I got to be the co-host to Speak of the Devils last week. I know a couple of weeks ago I got to jump in and co-host or be a guest on PHNX. So it's possible maybe there's just some oversaturation. Maybe it's too much of me. But for real, had some stuff going on. Wasn't able to get to the podcast. Appreciate your patience. Appreciate everybody who reached out. Things are good, though. Things are good, especially when it comes to Arizona State athletics, especially when it comes to football and basketball. And we're going to talk about both of those today. It has been a minute, so I do want to cover some basketball, and I think that's where we're going to start. I think that's where we're going to start with the Sun Devils. First of all, beating Grand Canyon, round of applause. Hanging with Gonzaga, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be possible. Beating Santa Clara and our old friend, Herb Sendek. How about that? And then also a victory over Idaho State, which, wasn't pretty, but a win is a win. And I know that so many people had nerves. They had real nerves coming out of that exhibition game that was out here in North Carolina, where I'm at. I'm out in Charlotte. Well, Arizona State came and visited Durham and did the whole, reunification of Bobby Hurley and Coach K. And they had the exhibition game against John Shire and Cooper Flagg. I was out there for it. It's Cameron Indoor Stadium is a crazy place. It's very small. Very small. I've heard people say that it's small. You need to, when you were talking to people about Cameron Indoor Stadium, you need to use more descriptive words than small. This is tiny, tiny, tiny. It says it seats 9,000, but it really felt like a high school gymnasium to me. When I got my tickets, I was like, well, I guess we're sitting in the upper deck. So I told my wife, hey, we're going to go. It should be a lot of fun, but just be prepared. I got us kind of up front in the second deck, but we're going to be in the nosebleeds. Guys, I was 20 yards from Coach K. 20 yards in the second deck. I was above the home entrance tunnel, first seat, next to my wife. We were 20 yards from Mike Krzyzewski the entire game. I could have hit a shot from where we were sitting easily. Great. I have a great shot, by the way. Nice rotation, straight elbow. It's a little bit, there's a little bit of too much arc on it. Too much arc. I could take away some of the arc, but I'm 5'8". What are you going to do? I got to get the ball up there in case, the 50% of humanity that is taller than me wants to block the shot. And got to see some of Arizona State's newcomers up close, but they lost by 60. It was an incredibly discouraging experience for the actual on-court basketball. The whole thing was to benefit Children's Hospital, which is fantastic. But at the same time, I don't know how many people are going to want to go out to Durham and do benefits anymore. Not if you're going to get beat down like that. And I do believe that Cooper Flagg is going to be the number one pick in the upcoming NBA draft. And they had a fantastic collection of talent. But, we did Sun Devil Spaces after that Duke game, and people were spooked. They were scared. They were afraid that it's going to be maybe third year in a row of disjointed hero ball with Bobby Hurley being upset on the sidelines. Because that's really kind of what it's been. If we're being honest, Arizona State basketball has been recruiting well, been getting talented players, but the chemistry has just not been there. And so, you lose to Duke by 60 and you start thinking to yourself, this is a team led by a 17 and an 18-year-old in Joson Sainin and Jaden Quaintance. If they had trouble developing chemistry before, how are they going to do it now when our best players are children? Children. Born in like 2009, 2008, 2007. Those are the leaders of our team. How are we going to get chemistry now? And so I think there was a lot of trepidation that this was going to be a season that was kind of more of the same, especially with so much encouraging news in the offseason about Arizona State's commitment to NIL, Graham Rossini coming in, being more open-minded, being more fan-focused, and Bobby Hurley finding ways to embrace NIL, getting competitive on that front, going into the Big 12 where, every game's going to be a good game. There was a lot of excitement, and then the Duke thing happened. And, I think next time maybe Arizona State fans will just pool together six figures and send it to the Children's Hospital and maybe save the trip because it didn't go well. However, things have gone pretty well since then. Duke's not as invincible as we thought they were. Perhaps exhibition basketball that doesn't mean anything is exactly that. It's just exhibition basketball that doesn't mean anything. The problem is you saw what you saw. I guess it'd be like seeing your spouse in a movie in a romantic scene, right? You see your spouse has to film a scene making out with John Hamm, or for my female listeners, Angelina Jolie. And it's fake, it doesn't mean anything, it's for the movies, but you saw what you saw. And it might be hard to get out of your head. So the Duke thing did happen, but it didn't count. It wasn't real. The real basketball has started, and this is how Arizona State is doing. You had a 55-48 win over Idaho State. Didn't look great, looked a little bit disjointed, but Arizona State in that game blocked 9 shots. It wasn't all bad. They also held Idaho State to 4 of 28 three-point shooting. So good perimeter defense, good interior defense. Just offensively looked disjointed. But then they bounced back against Santa Clara on the 8th against Herb Sendek. They shoot 42% from 3, 15 of 36. They hold Santa Clara to 41% shooting and 30% from three. Again, good perimeter defense. They out-rebound Santa Clara, not by much, but they do it. And despite turning the ball over 15 times, 8 more times than Santa Clara did, they come out with an 81-74 win. And then you have Gonzaga on the 10th, and you're just bracing for the absolute worst. And Arizona State, they hang in. I was actually impressed with Arizona State in this game. It was tied late. It was 69-69 there for a minute, which is pretty nice. Arizona State actually, with about a minute left, had the ball down 6. Could have hit a 3, got to stop, hit a 3, and I mean, it was a game. It was a game. And in that game, they stayed in that game. They didn't get to the free throw line much, but they hit 11 of 12, which was nice. Which is very nice. They cut down on their turnovers from the previous game. It's actually the season low in turnovers is that Gonzaga game. 10 turnovers in that game. Only 8 for Gonzaga, but you know, Arizona State, the one problem this year is they have yet to be plus on the turnover margin. It's less of an issue in basketball than it is in football, but it still matters. Now, they didn't pass the ball well in that Gonzaga game. There's a lot of things they did wrong. When we got on Sun Devil Spaces, we talked about it. They actually had the ability to win that game. It was very encouraging. Gonzaga, the number 6 team in the nation, when they faced off on the 10th, and that was in Spokane. That was in enemy territory. And in that game, we actually saw some flashes from Alston Mason, who had 19 points, Bashir Jihad, who had 22 points. And we realized, oh, I guess we're not going to have to be carried by these freshmen after all. That was encouraging. 12 points off the bench for BJ Freeman. Again, encouraging stuff. And then the game that everybody was waiting for, the game that everyone was really, really excited about, is this Grand Canyon game. Grand Canyon has never beaten Arizona State in their history. They want to so bad. They want to beat Arizona State so bad. They think about it all of the time. They consistently list the things that they believe they do better. Nicer arena, louder fans, more interest. They got Duke Brennan on their roster, who left Arizona State. They're constantly counting their blessings. Well, guess what? When it comes to actually, playing things out on the court, it has yet to matter. And at a neutral site in Footprint Arena, Arizona State got an 87-76 win. They shot 44% from 3. That's 2 games out of 4 this year where Arizona State has shot 40% or better from 3. Do you know why that's significant? Doing that twice in 4 games? Because they only did it 6 times last year. 6 in 32 games. They did it against Utah twice, Washington State, and Vanderbilt, all wins. And then they also did it in losses at University of San Diego and against UCLA. That's it. They had far more games where they shot under 30% from 3 last year than they did where they shot over 40%. I'm not kidding. They had 14 games where they shot under 30%. If you include just flat 30% in the win over SMU, that's 15. That's half the season. But Arizona State, here they are, 4 games into the year, 2 games shooting over 40% from 3. Joson Saint-On is legit. Absolutely let him cook. I know he only shot 1 time against Gonzaga, but they let him loose against Grand Canyon, and it was fantastic to watch. Fantastic to watch. He hit 5 threes. They were 11 for 25. They shot 44% from beyond the arc in this game. Jaden Quaintance, he's not shooting a ton, but his presence inside, that blocked shot at the end of the game to seal it, fantastic. I mean, this is a really, really good, from what I can tell, perimeter defensive team. They've got help on the interior. Sean Phillips got some size. Bashir Jihad's got some size. Austin Nunez registered the greatest flagrant foul I've ever seen in my life, where he got called for a flagrant foul simply because he had a much higher vertical a much higher vertical than Caleb Shaw. I don't know if you guys got to see that, but terrible foul call. Arizona State comes up with the win anyway. And, it helps that in that game they shot 85% from the free throw line. So they've got 2 games where they've been competent from the free throw line. They've got 2 games where they've been excellent from the outside. This team is averaging about 6 block shots a game right now. They had 16 assists, more than Grand Canyon, who is a team coached by Bryce Drew, supposed to, be better in half-court sets than Arizona State. So, I'm encouraged, and they have about a 4-game run coming up that's going to be really important to find out if they're actually legit. They play St. Thomas, a smaller school in Minnesota. They play Cal Poly, New Mexico. That game matters. There's no more Jalen House, I believe, but that game matters quite a bit. And then they have University of San Diego, who they lost to last year. So that's going to be an important one. All of that before they hit Atlanta to play University of Florida. I think I'm going to be at that one. So I don't know. I'm very encouraged by Arizona State basketball. I spent the majority of the day just going through social media and liking every single Grand Canyon fans tweet about how they were going to beat Arizona State. They're coping pretty hard today, and you'll love to see it. I'm not saying that, we're big brother to Grand Canyon's little brother. It's just that they want it so bad. And I've seen some criticism from some University of Arizona fans saying like, oh, well, no, you know what it's like to be us. No, we don't. No, we don't. You actually care. You care about the Territorial Cup. You care about beating Arizona State. Yes, you care about UCLA, but that game matters to you. The Grand Canyon thing, we could take it or leave it. Look, I'm going to be honest. I've worked in for-profit education. I think there's a place for for-profit education. I'm not here to do the thing where you roast Grand Canyon for being for-profit or for having a for-profit recruitment arm. Because if you're not aware how Grand Canyon works, in order to avoid the scrutiny that comes with having your educational institution receive government funding, you can't be out here incentivizing enrollment counselors with financial bonuses to enroll students, because they're going to enroll students that probably aren't ready for college, because they're going to do anything they can to be lobbyists for their own self-interest, which is their bank account. So incentivizing enrollment, of course you want people to enroll in your school. Of course, Arizona State's a giant college. We'll bring anybody in. We'll give them a college experience. And people look at that and they say, oh, well, you're not exclusive. But yeah, we want people to go to college. We have Barrett Honors College for people who want it to be a little more serious. We got School of Sustainability for people who that matters to. You can go to the Teachers College. You can go to our business school. Like we have things for everybody, but we're not going to discriminate. We're going to let people in. We're going to let them sink or swim. This is America. I have no problem with Arizona State, a state school, saying, give us your tired, you're weary, you're hungry, you're partied out, you're super geniuses, your space explorers, your recyclers, your athletes, whatever. I'm cool with that. I love being inclusive. I love that Arizona State University is a big tent. It's the best. I'm a big fan. But with Grand Canyon University, the way that it works is they removed their enrollment counselors from being employees of the university and made them employees of a separate company called Grand Canyon Education. Now, Grand Canyon Education is not subject to the oversight of the Department of Education as a separate company. But what does that company exist to do? It exists to enroll students into Grand Canyon University. And it's not technically federal funding if you're able to launder it through the school. So the school pays Grand Canyon Education money for its services of enrolling students. And that money goes from being federal funding, which I think 79% of Grand Canyon University's revenue comes from federal funding, from student loans, from Pell Grants, from things like that. And they give it to this second company, and then the money is washed. It's no longer federal funding. So they're kind of able to do what they want. And Grand Canyon spent $50 million more than Arizona State last year marketing their college. Think about that. Grand Canyon University spent $50 million more on marketing last year than Arizona State did. It is very important to Grand Canyon that people come to Grand Canyon, that they enroll in Grand Canyon online, that they go to school there and live on campus in the dorms. It's a real school now. Doesn't have a football team, but it's got a nice basketball stadium. They've already upgraded it. They got some dorms. They got chapel on Mondays. You get class credit for going to chapel. Not basketball games, as many people have said. I'm not gonna traffic in rumors. But Grand Canyon University, it was education with a purpose or whatever. It's the Christian education. It has its place. I live out here in North Carolina now. I can throw a rock and hit 15 colleges. I have no problem with Arizona finally having another option. And in fact, I want Grand Canyon to get football. As somebody who covers high school football in the state of Arizona, I would love for the opportunity for more local kids to stay home. I want good things for Grand Canyon, but my goodness, do the students have a cult-like mindset. No critique whatsoever for their president, who, to skirt the rules, separated the school into two companies, is the CEO of one company and the president of the school. And has, get this, 300,000 shares after the 7,700 that he sold this last week. 300,000 shares of Grand Canyon Education. That means this man's got like $48 million in the bank. He just sold off 7,000 plus shares to put 1.3 million in his pocket, and he gets paid $2 million a year, and that's just on the enrollment side. That's a lot of money for a college. Is it not? And I've had Grand Canyon students telling me all day, but he gets us kids. He grew the college. He deserves whatever. I don't know about you, but the school that I went to taught me to think critically. When people have criticism of Michael Crow and people had criticism of Ray Anderson, you let that stand on its own. But at Grand Canyon University, you cannot criticize Dear Leader. Not even when you're 0-4 against Arizona State in basketball. Winless. And it's going to be a while before you get another crack. So best of luck to the Antelopes. Horns up, or whatever. The Havocs, whatever that means. Best of luck to you. May you find future success and not shoot 68% from the free throw line in a game that you think is a rivalry game. Can't shoot 68% from the free throw line and have 14 turnovers and win. Sorry. Can't say that the refs were one-sided in foul calls when the foul calls were 21-20. Sorry. Can't win when you get 11 offensive rebounds and you don't do anything with them. Sorry, Grand Canyon. You lose, we win. Enjoy the rest of your season. Enjoy the Mountain West. I know that's a very big deal for you guys. So anyway, Arizona State basketball is 3-1. They beat Grand Canyon. I don't know if you heard the last 10 minutes of the podcast, but Arizona State won and Grand Canyon lost because we are winners and they are losers. And we're 3-1, and it feels pretty good, especially after the whole Duke debacle. And you start to look ahead at the schedule and you say, all right, we got a quality win against Santa Clara. We were competitive against Gonzaga. If somehow, some way Grand Canyon ends up mattering this year, we got that win in our back pocket. We don't need it, but we have it. And now it's time to make sure that you don't slip up against some of these lesser schools. So let's see some fans out against St. Thomas. Who cares that they're St. Thomas? Come out, root for this team. Come see two special freshmen in action. I want to see people in the stand. I would really like to see people in the stands giving some support to Alston Mason. Because he came over from Missouri State. He averaged 17.5 at Missouri State last year. And this is an important addition for Arizona State. This is a point guard, not necessarily a past first point guard, but he can distribute the ball, but he also attacks the rim. And he's not, he shot 7 threes a game last year at Missouri State to the clip of 35%. But I don't see him forcing three. Every three I've seen him take, he's been wide open. And he's hitting 38% this year so far. So I don't know. I'm very, very encouraged. Alston Mason, somebody who started out at Oklahoma, he's seen, he's been around big time players. This is a really cool opportunity for him to make an impact in the Big 12, where he started. He started in the Big 12 all the way back in 2021 when Oklahoma was part of the Big 12. So time is a flat circle. He's back, and it's going to be really interesting to see what he does. And then, honestly, adding BJ Freeman from Milwaukee, that's been massive. He's also a guard, but he's a little bit taller. He's 6'6". He's from out here in North Carolina, played for Moravian Prep up near Winston-Salem. And, he's not the best shooter in the world, but he's exactly who you need off the bench to give you that spark. The sixth man, Elliot Perry, Bobby Jackson type. The one that can come in and give you some offense so the whole thing doesn't fall apart when people need to rest. And yeah, he did average 20 at Milwaukee last year. And Milwaukee was a 20-win team. They were in the Horizon Conference, yes, but they were a 20-win team. He was their leading scorer by far. And he's been a fantastic addition. So kudos to Bobby Hurley and for the way that this roster was built. I'm looking forward to BJ Freeman continuing to feel more confident at this level and get to the free throw line a little bit more, because he's a consistent free throw shooter. And if he continues to be aggressive, the Big 12 is going to learn that this is a guy that that officials need to respect. But that's the thing about transferring, is that you transfer and then nobody knows who you are. You don't have that reputation of being a 20-point scorer anymore. But it's not just a team that's led by freshmen, because we have Alston Mason, we got BJ Freeman, we have some height on this team. And I'm encouraged. My hope is for the next 4 games that they run the table. You want to be 7-1 going into that Florida game, and you're going to get some national attention. Florida has started off the year 3-0. They haven't necessarily been tested, but just in this upcoming week, before Arizona State, they're going to have to play Florida State. They're going to have to play Wake Forest. They're going to have to play Virginia. They're going to have some tough contests from ACC opponents before they get into their SEC schedule. So they'll be battle tested. And they're a team that already has a game this year where they had double-digit blocks against Jacksonville. So, I'm anticipating a defensive battle, and that's going to be a fun one out in Atlanta. And if you're going to that game, then definitely hit me up. Let's get together, and we'll see if Todd Golden is still the coach of Florida at that time. He's currently under investigation for being a giant creep. I didn't say he was a giant creep. I said he's under investigation for being a giant creep. And we'll see how that investigation plays out, and if they're not on an interim coach by the time that Arizona State meets them in Atlanta on December 14th. So let's take a quick break. Let's pay some bills, and then let's get into Arizona State football, who is 7-2. All right, now for the main event, let's talk some football. But I think I might have left a couple of things out in that basketball segment. So let me backtrack just a minute, because I think it's really important. I don't want to forget anything. But in case I did forget to mention, Arizona State beat Grand Canyon 87-76. Arizona State is superior. Grand Canyon is inferior, at least in the context of the game that happened on November 14th, 2024. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. Oh, and Grand Canyon is not in the top 200 of any academic category. And also they're writing a check for $38 million to the Department of Education for defrauding doctoral students on the overall cost of the programs. Wasn't sure I mentioned any of that. Oh, and in case I left it out, Arizona State beat Grand Canyon University 87-76. So I wasn't sure I got to those things, but wanted to make sure that I gave them a mention. So now that that's out of the way, let's move on to football, where your Arizona State Sun Devils are 7-2. Cam Scatterboot did not play last week, and Arizona State got a home win against UCF, 35-31. That was an interesting game. Definitely an interesting game. Arizona State looked a little disjointed, and I would have to say I don't think this year there has been a game where I've thought to myself, oh, Arizona State looked good offensively in all facets for the entire game. Second half against Oklahoma State was pretty special. First 300-yard passing game of the season, even though a lot of that was after the catch, doesn't matter. 300-yard passing game. It's been a minute. Nobody since Trenton Bourguet had done that since the 2019 season against Oregon. So that was refreshing. But yeah, I think that even though Arizona State is 7-2, even though there's a reasonable expectation that Arizona State should probably be at least 8-1 based on how they played the final 55 minutes of that Texas Tech game, it's encouraging. A win is a win. And in this 35-31 game that saw a special teams touchdown, that saw a defensive touchdown, that saw just some incredible mental lapses from UCF on special teams, and it's good to be able to take advantage of those. Arizona State, 3 touchdown passes, managed to get 99 yards rushing without Cam Scatterboot. It's going to be good to have him back against Kansas State, that's for sure. But I mean, look at it this way, and they do in college football, they do deduct for sacks taken. That's negative on the total rushing yards. But look at it this way. Cam Scatterboot has 1,001 rushing yards on the season. As a team, including negative plays, Arizona State has 1,069. So there are currently 68 rushing yards collectively outside of Cam Scatterboot's production. For him to not play, even though I guess he was begging Kenny Dillingham all week long, even begging him on the sidelines in the third quarter if he could put his pads on. You love to see that warrior mentality. But Arizona State needs to be able to win without him. They need to be able to include other players. And, they did that. They got a win with only 260 yards of total offense, which is by far their lowest total of the entire season. The lowest total prior to that was 343, I believe, which came in the win against Utah. They had 346 in the loss to Cincinnati. But this is the first game all year that Arizona State has had under 300 yards of offense, and they won. And they did it only getting 15 first downs. They got another 3 that came by way of penalty, which were helpful. But not turning the ball over is very helpful. It's very helpful. And, getting a defensive touchdown, getting a special teams touchdown, all very important things. And I think this is 2 games in a row where Arizona State has won without making a field goal. And it might be, if I'm not mistaken, it might be 3 consecutive games total with no field goals made. So once the whole kicker thing happened, I think maybe we just abandoned that part of the game, just score touchdowns. That's a good strategy. They're averaging 38 points a game since then and getting the ball in the end zone. And I think that's what's important. Arizona State's streak of not allowing 300-yard passing games continues against UCF. And they were respectable against the run. RJ Harvey's a star. I don't know what to tell you. He got in the end zone 3 times. He's a monster. He's a tough guy to deal with. And I think UCF's a good team. I think if they don't make all those mistakes, they beat Arizona State. I'm grateful that they did, and I'm grateful that Arizona State took advantage. But now here ASU is at 7-2. The Las Vegas line on this season was 4.5 games going in. Half the people I talked to outside the fan base thought they were going under. And I'd say about 3/4 of the fan base that I talked to within the Arizona State fan base thought they were going over, but there was still a lot of trepidation about this season. You go 3-9 last year, and a lot of people want to see it. The whole doubting Thomas thing. And I'm not slighting Thomas of the Bible, who needed to see the wounds in Jesus' hands. So that's just how we're built. Some of us need to see. I'm one of those people. I got to see it. I got to see it to believe it. Luckily for me, I cover college football. I know enough about who came in the portal, and and what other teams were bringing back, what Arizona State's strengths are, what kind of the recruiting base they were drawing from, the offense that they were running. I was confident enough to say that there was absolutely no way in hell that Arizona State was finishing 16th, which is what the media predicted of them. I thought this was a 6-win team. Now, they've gone past my expectations. They're playing with house money, and they're going into a game in Manhattan, Kansas, that if you ask Arizona State fans before the season, what's the game that you guarantee? Because you look and say, you figure Arizona State's going to win a game they shouldn't. They're going to lose a game that you definitely expect them to lose. Like, one of these games they're definitely losing. One of these games they're going to win, even though you don't expect them to. We had that conversation on Spaces. Everybody went through the schedule. I said that if I felt like if they were going to guaranteed lose any game, it was either going to be to Utah or BYU. And everybody I talked to was like, no. The game you have to watch out for is on the road in Manhattan, Kansas in November, because this is Arizona State. They go on the road in November. They go into cold weather and they lose. Not a dependable road team, not a dependable November team, not a dependable cold weather team. So everyone was like, no, they got BYU and Utah at home. They have great chances to win those games at home. I said, no. Those are the tough teams. Utah just got done beating Arizona State 55-3. You really think Arizona State's going to win? And they did, of course. And they're on the verge, if they beat BYU, having their first perfect home season in 20 years, which is insane. So Arizona State on the verge of a perfect home season, but this is the game that most people said, if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be at Kansas State on the road in November in Manhattan. Now, I've never been. Some of you reached out to me and said that you have, said that it's lovely. My wife used to live there. My mother-in-law got her master's, I believe, in accounting from Kansas State. My wife lived there for a few years, so I have some connections there. I'd never been there before the last couple of years, driving back and forth between North Carolina and Arizona. Stopped in Manhattan a couple of times. It's beautiful. I think their fan base is great. They used to come out to the Valley all the time for bowl games, and I got to see them in that 2002 game, the only time that Kansas State has ever beaten Arizona State in the Holiday Bowl. But, you got to see a little bit of Kansas State, and there's a lot of Kansas State fans in and around Arizona. Pretty much anybody who's in the Plains or the Midwest, they finish college and they come to Arizona. So, I've always been surrounded by Kansas State fans, and, you look at some of their teams, the Colin Klein at quarterback or Darren Sproles at running back, and, they've had some really special players throughout the years. However, they've never really been able to put it together. And what a lot of people thought was, with Texas out of the way and Oklahoma out of the way in the Big 12, the conference is running through Kansas State, and they were fine to lose their quarterback. You have to remember that they lost their quarterback to Ohio State. And they were fine with it because they believed that Avery Johnson was going to be the guy. He was going to lead them to the promised land. And after kind of a rough start, he's showing that he actually might be. He didn't play well against Houston on the road. But before that game that they lost to Houston on the road, which, that's a game where Houston was a lot like Arizona State against UCF. Less than 250 yards of offense, and they won the game. Sometimes it's just good to be at home. But before that Houston game, and you have to think, regression to the mean is a thing. Some good games are an anomaly, some bad games are an anomaly. And I think for Avery Johnson, the Houston game was a bad anomaly. And he's going to progress to the mean, not regress. Because the previous 4 games were all wins. And in those games, he had 10 touchdown passes to 2 interceptions. He also had 4 rushing touchdowns. He is a special player. Kansas State fans were not wrong about him. He's just kind of new to it, kind of like Sam Leavitt, second year, right? He's got a lot to prove, but he's got his completion percentage up to 61%. He's got 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. You can rattle him a little bit, but this is a Kansas State defense that is very similar to the defense that Arizona State runs. And I was talking with George Reister this week, who I co-host a podcast called College Football Apostles with. And what we kind of came to the conclusion is sometimes familiarity equals fireworks. Sometimes when you know what the other defense is running, You're going to be able to pull some stuff off, and it's possible you have some big plays on either side from Kansas State and Arizona State. I feel better about calling the over on that 50.5 for the game than I do about calling the spread either way. And I know that Arizona State's a big underdog. But I'm nervous going into this game, and Arizona State is still alive for the Big 12 championship. They have to win out. That's a given. But if Utah beats Colorado, or Colorado loses to any of the three upcoming opponents they have, oddly enough, the three upcoming opponents they have were all teams that got first place votes in the Big 12 preseason media poll, and all three have fallen off a cliff. They have Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. But if only one of those teams gets a win, then Arizona State's really in the driver's seat. They just need West Virginia to lose a game. If Arizona State wins out, Utah beats Colorado, or any of the other two teams beat Colorado, and West Virginia loses once. And if you look at West Virginia's upcoming schedule, they do get Baylor and UCF at home, but they finish with a tough one at Texas Tech. And who knows? Maybe if Arizona State beats BYU slips up and loses another game. You never know. But the point is, Arizona State's alive. Kansas State is alive in November. Who would have thought? Not me. Not me. I can take credit for telling you that Arizona State was going to be competitive. I felt they were competitive last year until the final 4 games of the season. And one of those final 4 games, by the way, they beat UCLA 17-7, running the swinging gate. But I thought this was going to be a very competitive team. And now, all your preseason goals, all the lofty ones, are still in front of you. You can make the college football playoff in year 2 with a redshirt freshman quarterback, a Sacramento State transfer running back, a Colorado cast-off lead wide receiver, a wide receiver number 2 who missed the last 3 years of football, a number 1 tight end on his 3rd school, 2 offensive linemen who missed last year with an injury, and a defense that returned, 2 starters? That's a good coaching job. That's a really good coaching job. And I think it bodes very well for the future of Arizona State under Kenny Dillingham's leadership. I really do. But you got to get through Kansas State first. And while we are playing with house money, and I refuse to get upset if Arizona State loses, you want to win, right? So how do they do that? How do they do that? The number 1 key to victory in this is going to be Sam Leavitt running the football. Now, he has a rib injury. He's healing from it. Do you really want him out there on the run if he doesn't have to be? Absolutely not. But Kansas State's really good against the run, and the only time they've struggled this year is when the opposing quarterback took the initiative to run, and that was Jalen Daniels of Kansas. And Kansas State still won that game, but it was close, 29-27. But they mixed up the looks in the running game. Now, having Cam Scatterbo back is going to be huge. He's hard to tackle, but they'll key in on him, which means you have to be able to complete a couple of passes downfield. Sam Leavitt has done a little bit of that, a little bit. But, this is still a guy who's averaging 15, 16 completions a game. You don't want him to have to throw too much. And it's not necessarily a defense that you can dependably pass on. So you want to run with Sam Leavitt. You want him to be judicious. You don't want it to be too many designed runs, but you do want him to move the chains. It's really important not to get in 3rd and long situations that you can't rectify. Right? Kansas State has also been very good as a running team up until last week's game at Houston. So you want to learn from that, because that's the only game this year where they averaged less than 4.3 yards per carry. In fact, even with the Houston total where they had 34 carries for 89 yards at 2.6 yards a clip, they're still averaging 6 yards a carry on the season. They're a very dangerous rushing team. When they get that running game going, it takes pressure off Avery Johnson. When you put the game on Avery Johnson's shoulders, he's not going to throw you to victory. So the goal needs to be to shut down the running game. I mean, Kansas State has the same goal with Arizona State. These are two very similarly built and similarly coached teams. But what I think Arizona State's going to need to do is get Sam Leavitt out on the run. That's going to be really, really important. Now, you can throw on Kansas State if you're running a certain type of offense that Arizona State does not run. Shedeur Sanders went for almost 400 yards. But he has LaJohntay Wesley and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr. They also throw the ball a billion times a game. My alarm keeps going off. I apologize for that. They also throw the ball a billion times a game. Arizona State's not going to do that. Look at what Houston did to Kansas State last week. They were very judicious. 12 for 12, 111 yards. They did most of their damage taking advantage of mistakes from Kansas State. They didn't actually move the ball all that much. Only 4 passing and 4 rushing first downs. Only 8 first downs on offense for Houston last week, and they won the game. But they really, really tried to force the run against Kansas State. We're going to have to try to do the same. Keep their offense off the field. That's what's most important. They're also, they're +2 in turnovers on the season. They will take the ball away, but they'll give it away as well. When BYU got up on them, and this is what I'm telling you, Avery Johnson's a good quarterback and a good athlete, but BYU got up on them and they struggled. They really struggled in that game. And, against Oklahoma State, they beat Oklahoma State about the same amount as Arizona State did. But they were sloppy in that game, as Arizona State was. Again, two very, very similar teams. Keys to victory are going to be the exact same for both, and that's why the thing I worry about the most is the home field advantage. Because Kansas State is still 7-2. Even if they lost to Houston and had 2 weeks to stew on it, they still have home field advantage. They're still in the college football playoff race. Their fans are still going to be out in full force. So, I don't know. It's going to be a good game. Last I checked, Kansas State was favored by 8.5. On the spread alone, I'm taking Arizona State. But this is the first time all year that I'm not going to come out and just call an Arizona State win based on what I see on paper. If ASU wins this game, it's going to be completely outside of my expectations. And they'll be 8-2 with 2 games left, with a good chance of College Game Day coming to Tempe, Arizona, because BYU is undefeated. And in all honesty, they're probably going to beat Kansas at home. And if they beat Kansas at home, they'll be 10-0. Arizona State will probably be ranked for the first time this season. And you will have a college football playoff spot on the line. Big noon kickoff is going to be at Indiana, Ohio State. It would make sense for College Game Day to split the baby. And then there you have it. The energy in Tempe and Kenny Dillingham's second year coming off of sanctions. It'd be incredible. So that's what I'm rooting for. Logically, finding a path to victory is very difficult for me right now. And what it really comes down to for me is home field advantage. But Cam Scadaboo's a special player. Sam Leavitt hadn't been making a whole lot of mistakes, and he is athletic enough to keep these chains moving. There is a chance. There is absolutely a chance, and I would love nothing more than for Arizona State to be hosting an undefeated Brigham Young University with a spot in the college football playoff potentially on the line in Tempe, with national media attention there from the same network that employs Herm Edwards. And they'll have production meetings all week, and he'll be forced to talk about it. And everyone at that network will have to tiptoe and dance around the fact that the guy that they employed tried to tank this program through negligence and neglect, and it didn't work. You can't kill us that easy. and nobody's going to bring it up, but we're all going to know about it. And you know what's going to happen when College Game Day shows up? We're going to get to send the message for them, the thing that they won't talk about on their network. You know, Pete Thamel got that ESPN job in part on his Arizona State reporting. He's been a lot quieter about Arizona State ever since he got there, now that Herm Edwards is a coworker. But I tell you what, I've been on the College Game Day set several times in several cities. They can't police all those signs that show up in the background. So we can say whatever we want about the past, about the future. Get a Speak of the Devils sign out there. Get a Fortcast sign out there. We can do whatever we want. But we got to beat Kansas State first. And that's it for this week's Fortcast. I appreciate everybody's patience for missing the last couple of weeks. Thank you to everybody who reached out. Thank you to everybody who listens, shares, reviews, shows up to Sun Devil Spaces every single Wednesday. The best part about doing this is just having the community. Fortcast is an awesome opportunity for me to talk to you, but I also really love talking with you. So make sure to make it a point, if you can, to be there for Spaces on Wednesday night. Maybe not for the whole thing, but just get in there, say your piece, shout out your people, and move on. It's as Kyle Dodd always puts it, you know, when all else fails, we got each other. And that is, it's just an awesome thing to do every Wednesday night, to gather together. So thank you so much to everybody who listens to this, shares, reviews, and all that. I'm going to end this the same way that we end it every single week. If you live with a heart of gratitude, the world is a wondrous place. Forks up, go Devils, beat the Wildcats. It always feels good to say beat the Wildcats. And we'll see you on the College Game Day set at 8-2. Fingers crossed. And forks up.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.